Okay, welcome everybody. I'd just like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today. I'd also like to pay my respect to elders past and present. Do we have any apologies for their absence? Nothing?
Yes, there is. There's one for next month's meeting for council costs. Person in leave of absence. And that one.
Okay. Do we need a motion for that?
Yes.
Motion for that. Someone like to move? Thank you. Councillor Risselman. Seconded. Councillor Lada. All in favour? Okay. Thank you. Public forum. We're moving to the public forum.
I think that's right.
Thank you. 5 minutes?
Kill it. Yeah. Maybe do one. Declarations of community interest.
Before we start, I'll just go on the declaration of pecuniary interest on the agenda. Any declarations? No. Okay, we'll move on to public forum. Thank you.
Just one more quick. Honourable Mayor and Councillors, I'm here as part of the social committee for the Cancoden Country Club. As we've written up there, the Country Club is more than just a club and a golf course. It's also the town's community hub, a purpose where our retired people and townspersonnel remain active through volunteer work. They meet and they find a sense of community. The golf course features grass greens and fairways that are maintained by the township's retired population on a volunteer basis and provides exercise through regular golf. The clubhouse is a community club where the retired township personnel meet, discuss with pride the township's core role in the building of the Snowy Hydro, and also it's a place where locals ensure that new families are welcome to town, like myself and my wife when we came a few months back, and also where young families can also meet in a social environment. Okay, just a couple of questions. Social resources, including social activity and social support, are key influences in the quality of life for the elderly people. Neighbourhoods, including social cohesion within a neighbourhood and safety, are associated with well-being in late life. The Cancoden Country Club offers a safe social environment to meet others in the community, golf course to attract tourists into the township, and also a place for the patrons, families and club members to meet in a family-friendly environment. Cancoden's population is 304 as of 2016 census. We have 74 families in town, average family 2.1 kids, and then all out of the private dwellings with an average of 1.9 people per house. And it's not a huge population. So at the moment with the country club, we have had to shut the doors on the country club at this point. We were trading for a period on incorrect advice, and it was updated that we were insolvent and we had to close, we couldn't keep going. So as the review of the profit margins, we had a business plan done. There were a lot of things within good business practice over the period, from the luxury days when Snowy Hydro were in the town to which had been incorporated as normal business. So we got this action plan going forward. So we're reviewing what the margins, they've been declining. We only had 3 wages in the actual club at the point, and all the rest was volunteer work. To develop the plan, originally we reduced hours, but then we've had to shut the doors now. So we've got to develop a plan to reduce the employment costs, what best suits the operating hours going forward. We're reviewing the insurances at the moment. The club, about 3 years ago, sold off their poker machine licenses to try and keep the club running. Fortunately, they didn't put a good business plan behind that to actually maintain where they were going and see where the loss deficiencies were. And so they ended up back in the same point again with those assets. So at the moment, we also got, we've been paying rates on about 800 acres, I think that was wrong. And we only use about 100 acres of that land. So later on, Margaret's council, excuse me, will introduce another part. So we want to develop a plan with the council to dispose of our surplus land and to inject capital originally to make us solvent so we can get open again for the Christmas period, because this is the period where we do get the money which comes into the town through tourism, and then how we can manage that cost. Yes, we've had an audit cost that's come through. They come through about 7,000 annually, which is quite expensive what they've done. Partly that's because of the way the business was run in the past, because they didn't have a solid operating budget going forward, and they didn't reconcile their costs on a monthly basis. And so they got to the end of the financial year, and the auditors had a large workload to go through. So they're some of the things which we'll address forward. Next one, please. As I said, reporting and monitoring, simple things. Get an MYOB, get a business plan going forward, look at our expenditures, reconcile monthly, and report monthly on finance, so we can actually pick up any issues early. On the marketing side, it was discovered through the business plan that you went to Can Coven, and if you looked at places to eat and things to do, the clubhouse didn't come up on any of those. So it's a matter of getting the visibility out as well. Trading hours during winter, we can reduce those when we go forward. Our main focus at the moment is to get going. And next one. So what have we done in the direction at the moment? We have suspended the club trading indefinitely. Maintain the golf course, so we've still got the golf course in operation, 9-hole golf course, and we have grass greens there, one of the few golf courses which is an attraction for people down there. We're going to raise through income through disposal of surplus land. We're going to review all of our insurances, remove the unnecessary insurances associated with poker machines, pay our taxes, creditors, loans. A lot of the compulsory stuff we've been getting done out of what we had, but we've still got going forwards ATO. We've got to talk more to the ATO. Consider change in ownership structure, whether it stays as a club in New South Wales or we turn it into a large social club, or and restructure insurances and costs that way as well. And consider alternatives for the clubhouse itself, but that's only a conception at this stage and it's to be spoken about. So yeah, if there's any questions?
When you're saying raised, in fact on that other slide, raised income has commenced, what do you mean by that?
Raise income?
Yeah.
Well, there's several ways that we're raising income. When we had our AGM at the last one, there was plenty of people who were willing to commit finance, but we haven't got anything which we can balance it off a return until we've actually worked on our land processes, subdivided the land, and we've got a guarantee where we can actually do that. We can then take commitments from people to potentially get up and running sooner. Or secondly, we wait until we go through and do the surveying, the subdividing, and see where it goes through.
And is any wages owed to people, or is everyone?
Everyone's been paid. We've just paid superannuation. Sorry.
Everyone's been paid. All our bills have been paid, stuff like that. It's just some of the outstanding stuff.
Yeah.
With the ATO.
And rates to council, have they been paid?
As far as I know, they are.
Right.
Yes.
Paid up to date until about June this year.
Yeah. Just going forward,
There's obviously been some issues with the directorship there previously, regarding the financial situation and the poker machines, etc. So what changes have happened to give confidence going forward that you're going to turn that around?
I guess there was nothing malicious which had occurred there. I think it was a lack of information, which is the main part. I'm a senior manager working with Snowy Hydro as construction manager. So I've entered into the board for that particular reason, for the experience of controlling large budgets, looking ahead from large programs, and getting the involvement. As I said, my wife and I, we moved here 4 months ago. She's a psychologist, and the amount of assistance we got from the club and the community in helping us to settle into that community and seeing how important it was to everyone is what has fueled me to also get involved in this.
And what do you suggest the land would be worth?
I've heard there's one block at the front which is fully serviced at this stage but still needs to be surveyed, subdivided. The 1.5 acres, possibly around about $80,000, which would come in to certainly meet the immediate issues and get us into a position where we can start. It's not going to make it a financial viable case if we don't change anything going forward, but it certainly gets us into the summer period where we've got our population of tourists coming through and the period where the club operates well. The longer term one, there is a bush block at the back of the golf course, which Councillor this one we talked about, which is around about 600-700 acres, not sure what it's going to be surveyed as, but potentially that's where the income can come from to make it sustainable on a solid business plan.
How much do you think that would be worth?
Pardon?
How much do you estimate that would be worth?
I couldn't guess. I don't know. I don't have the experience in real estate down there, sorry.
Has there been any consultation with Snowy Hydro or any other?
There has been consultation with Snowy Hydro. As I say, I'm not here as a Snowy Hydro person. I'm here as a resident. Snowy Hydro is more of a public enterprise now. They did hand over the town to the council. I'm not even sure how many years ago that was. And the Snowy have helped them with the business plan, funding the business plan, along with also the council. And they do have functions up there when they can, and Christmas functions, but being a private enterprise, they've still got to answer to their stakeholders as well. So, thank you for your time.
Okay, back to the agenda. Confirmation of minutes of the previous meeting. Can you confirm those? Yeah. Councillor Usselman, Councillor Hand. And business arising from those minutes. Okay, there's a mayoral minute. I think all councillors have a copy of that. And the mayoral minute is the purpose of the report is to request a report on parking in the Snowy Valley Council. And the recommendation there is that a report be prepared at the earliest convenience highlighting parking issues in the Snowy Valley Council with particular emphasis on the parking contribution required for developments in the former Tumut Shire Council. So on there, don't I? So, bring that forward. Thank you.
Mayor, could I make
Any
a,
comment?
yes, please, could I make a move motion that the motion I have before the table on Canco be moved to confidential, please, because there are some sensitive confidential issues that need to be discussed that are relevant to that. And I believe it needs to be moved into confidential, so could I move that that be done, please?
Your motion.
Oh, yes, sorry about that.
Thank you. Do you mind if we hold up for a second?
Oh, certainly.
All right, so I've got the motion here, the mayoral minute, that we move towards a report on that. All those in favour? Against? That's carried. Councillor Isselman.
Yes, again, agenda. Could I please move that the motion I put before the council be moved to confidential because there are certain sensitive issues that may be relevant to this motion that need to be confidential.
Commercial and confidence.
Thank you.
Do we have a seconder for that? Any discussion on that? All in favour? Okay, carried. Moved into. Okay, which takes us to the notices of motion, which we have a few. This one is on page.
Better advise our visitors that it's actually going to be discussed in confidential, so they can't
Yeah.
stay.
You can stay until then, but it won't be discussed. Sorry.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, but
Right.
I'll call you as soon as we've done.
Yeah, all right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, gentlemen.
So we've got item 7.1, waiving of all pool fees. Councillor Lara.
Seconded?
Yep. Will you move that one?
Yeah, I'll move that one.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Councillor Isselman.
Look, essentially, I put this notice of motion forward to establish free operating of the pools, essentially on a 12-month trial period, to see how that progresses throughout the Shire, to encourage participation at the pool, and to ensure that cost isn't a restriction to people accessing the pool, to promote social cohesion in the community, and to promote citizens being able to exercise freely and enjoy the beautiful pools that we operate. I think it'll be a good option for the council to adopt this, increase participation at the schools, increase the safety awareness around water, and improve the social aspects of our youth and assist them in the community, as well as older people who might like to go there with their grandchildren, or people who just like to exercise. So on that basis, I propose this and would recommend that anyone who's paid the fee already be reimbursed for the yearly subscription, and that at the end of the 12 months we reconsider it, and that the fees and charges remain as they are at present if we revert to a fee structure. So, for instance, if the fee was $1 a tumbarumba, well, that remains as it is today in 12 months' time if we discontinue the free trial. Essentially, I just recommend it. I think it'll be a good inclusion, and perhaps we could also work with council staff to perhaps include a demographic survey on entry, so that we get some good feedback and information on the demographic of people who are using the pool, and perhaps it should be a condition of an initial entry that we do get that information back as a condition of free use, similar to what some stores do when you purchase goods in the store. Get the postcode and the age of the person using the pool, whatever information the council might deem appropriate to facilitate further decision making into the future as to the ongoing commitment to our pools.
Thanks, Councillor Lara. We can do this two ways. We can debate it as a normal motion, or we could move into committee if anybody wants to say anything further, or we could just put the motion.
I'll just ask a question in Director of Assets. I noticed the Director's got a comment there. Maybe we can move to Council, to committee. We could have a comment from Director of Assets.
Exactly. Are you moving that way?
Move to committee, please.
Seconded?
Yes.
Councillor Cross? All in favour?
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Smith.
So, Mayor, I noticed the Director of Assets and Infrastructure has commented on a recommendation that the fee structures remain contained and that the review be undertaken for next year. Could I have a breakdown on what fees may be expected to be gathered through that year, through this coming year?
Mr Christensen.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. On previous years, across the 5 pools, we have a total revenue of 214,000. Of those entry fees is 133,000.
133,000.
That's total across all 5 pools
All five.
for the full seasons. That's all. We were only looking at $133,000 as fees. I mean, only, but still.
So, and all the rest is in swipe card things.
All the rest is in the activities we have, like the learn to swim classes and the aqua aerobics, and also the kiosk takings.
And they would remain under this proposal.
Yes.
And indeed, possibly increase.
Yes. So entry fees are 133,000, which is applicable to this.
And do you envisage the operating costs to go up as well?
I could only provide you anecdotal discussion on that. I wouldn't be able to provide you hard facts.
Assuming that the hours don't change, but there would possibly be more chemical used and perhaps the need for more supervisory staff.
I'd say that there's a high likelihood of more supervisory staff required. You increase the numbers of people patronising these facilities, there may be some more staff required.
Yep.
But I couldn't quantify that. I don't have any data to say how much it would increase.
Thank you.
Would you have any idea how much is children and how much is adults?
I haven't prepared that information for this. It's very hard because we haven't collected very hard data over the 5 pools over many years, and it has been inconsistent. So I can provide you rough figures that have been collected, but I couldn't provide them now to you.
And Councillor Ladu, is this for under 18-year-olds, or is this blanket for everyone?
Well, I'd propose that it's blanket for everyone, because I just think it'd be too difficult to manage if we start trying to police it at the gate.
Okay.
I think that'll sort of add to the impost.
And I suppose I'm trying to think of a solution for this, but thinking in Tumbarumba, there's a caravan park next door. They pay for their showers. All of a sudden, the people at the caravan park go up to the pool. I'm just wondering if there's some way that we could be clever enough that that was counteracted. I think we have to be aware of the good businesses we've got and look after them.
So the issue is that you're concerned that people are paying for showers at the caravan.
And that's a revenue for the caravan park, and all of a sudden that revenue would be certainly reduced because people jump in the pool and have a shower out there. Whether they pay for showers, I don't know, but we have to look after our businesses that we've got.
I suppose the reverse thing might be that their caravan park might be more full now that they can get free entry to the pool.
Oh, the caravan park doesn't have any trouble being full.
Mr Cox, would you like to comment?
Mr Mayor, that is already an ongoing issue in relation to people paying the nominal fee to enter the pool and use the showers. The people that do free camping inside the Shire and making it free would actually increase that substantially, I would feel.
Is there any possibility that we could introduce, if you want a cold shower, we'll provide it, but if you want a hot shower, you put the coin in the sock like they do at Caravan Park?
Yes, that's an option. You could retrofit the showers because they are hot showers there. Up until about 5 or 6 years ago, there were only cold showers there. But yeah, some sort of device could be fitted to the hot that allowed you to use that. I don't know if you want the patrons. Well, I suppose they're all legitimate patrons if you do make it free to use the pool. I don't know if there'll be any backlash in relation to having to pay for the showers. But I suppose if they're getting free entry, it somewhat cancels out up there.
Oh, look,
Mr. Chair. The main thing in my mind is that we have to look after the kids. It's the alienation of the youth. It's our problem in this town. The kids being felt that they're excluded from going to the pool and their buddies are inside. They're excluded because they can't afford to go in. And I think it leads on to vandalism and all sorts of antisocial behaviour, the fact that these kids are excluded. And my motivation about all of this is to get those kids free access to swimming. Because after all, before the Snowy Hydro came in and made our river dangerous, they used to swim in the pools in the river, and that's been taken away from them. And if you live on the coast, you have the kids have access to the ocean and the beaches for free. And I think our kids should have the same opportunities here. At present, you can see kids walking past a swimming pool in summer, looking inside at their buddies swimming around inside, and they have to feel that they're being hardly done by. I'd certainly support this for children under the age of 18, but I don't think there's the same case for the adults.
Yeah, and I feel very much the same way. Further comment?
Yes, I'm significantly concerned that if we start saying under the 18, we put an impost on the people who are running the pools to decide who's 18 and who isn't, and I think that in itself is going to be a difficult thing to police. I think if we're looking at this from the position of the social impact of being able to swim and those sorts of things, I think we should be clear cut and say it's free, and the idea of considering what age they are and so on is of no concern at all. I significantly would like to trial it for one swimming term, with the understanding that we do a very clear estimate of what it has meant to the pools, what uptake has been, what the exercise is, and with the understanding to our community that if we feel it is too much of an expense and it's too expensive for us to continue, that we'll bring the fees back in for another year and continue on from there. But I don't think it's going to do all that much harm to us as a community to trial it for one season and see what it does. There are issues in relation to international travellers who come through our communities on seasonal work, and I think they're the people we are largely ignoring as our tourist potential for the future. These young people who come here on seasonal work, they're not necessarily people to avoid, they're people we need to embrace and give them an opportunity to be part of our community and embrace the ethnicity that they bring to our community, and I don't believe we're doing that at the moment. So avoiding having free pools for only adults is not something I would support at all. So I think that we need to just go with the fact that $133,000. I'm surprised that it is so low, and if we give our ratepayers something to be really celebrating in relation to what their rates are and offering, well, then that's the way we go. It potentially, and this is something I'm having a balloon thinking of, potentially we could ask people to, if there's suddenly a massive uptake, to put an extra $1 on their rates, and away we go.
Yeah, I think I like the idea of paying for the hot showers to support the caravan park in Tumbarumba. Like, to me, that's a way that it's going to protect them. And like people would have a cold shower for free, but if you want a hot shower, pay $2 to get a hot shower, and that'll protect them and make it look like we're doing the right thing by them as well.
Yeah, I'd support that.
Okay. Yeah, Councillor Cross.
My feedback from the community that I've been surveying is that they expect to pay, that they're happy to pay, and that if they pay for it, they value it. And my worry is that if they are asked not to pay, they won't value the facility as much. I take your point that it's a socially equitable thing, and I like the idea of having a survey to see actually who is using it. But if we set a precedent that it is free this year, then if it's not free next year, council could look bad as well. So I guess what I'm saying is I'm sitting on the fence.
think that's pretty clear.
And the anticipated deficit is, what is it, 852,000, is that right?
We'll take it to $1 million.
I can tell you that from last
I'll take it to
year.
$1 million.
So the net council result was total profit loss was around $900,000. So yeah, so we've made expenditure of that. So it's roughly around the 10% mark that you're recouping.
Okay, Councillor Smith.
Pardon me. Considering that this is a trial that we're considering at this moment, can we also include in the trial equalising the time that the pools are open, or the season that the pools are open, that they're unified as well during the period of this trial?
Councillor Smith, I think that would be an amendment, and once we move out of committee, you can put that, or you can put it up as a separate notice of motion for the next meeting.
Thank you.
Ian,
Move that we move out of committee.
Sorry, is there a behaviour policy for pools?
Scott?
Sorry, what was that?
Is there a behaviour policy for pools?
Exclusion for misbehaviour.
As far as I know, no. Kids under 16 have got to be supervised by an adult at the pool, but I don't think there's an actual formal policy.
Maybe younger than that, I think, from memory.
12?
But yeah, that needs to be.
Yeah.
Mr. Christensen.
Mr Mayor, there has been instances at some local pools where the police have been called to escort people off the ground for bad behaviour, but we don't have any powers to forcibly remove people from the pool.
We don't?
Do we have the powers to say, no, you're banned, you're not allowed in anymore? We do.
Councillor Richmond?
Can I move that we go out of committee, please?
Thank you so much.
You're most welcome.
Second it? Councillor Wright? All in favour? Okay. Thank you. So we've got the recommendation there. We have Councillor Lada has spoken on it. Does anyone like to speak against that motion?
Yeah, I'm afraid I have to speak against it. I'm just concerned financially that I don't feel overly comfortable with it. Love the concept. But if it does go ahead, I'll put in my that Cancoban and Tumbarumba now get swipe cards, that the fees remain the same if we come back again after the trial, and that there's a strong behaviour management policy put in place, and that showers at Tumbarumba are charged.
So are you moving an amendment?
I'm happy for that to be all.
You happy with that to be included?
Thank you.
We better get that.
We better get that down. So that'll have to appear. So you speak slowly to Susan. And then
Okay, sorry. Swipe cards for Cancoban and Tumbarumba.
Swipe cards for all pools.
For all, yep.
Council pools.
Fees to remain the same after the trial period. Strong behaviour management policy in place. Developed, I suppose.
Behaviour management.
Policy.
Behaviour expectations.
Hot showers in Tumbarumba to be charged. And finally, all people to be refunded, all people who have paid so far this year to be refunded, unless they've been swipe cards.
Unless they're swap cards.
Yeah.
And the survey probably needs.
Yes.
That's a survey being conducted. Full use of the survey.
On entry.
Does that mean we have to mean the game? We probably wouldn't.
No, for access, just a form that they can fill out.
Well, you could even just have an iPad there, couldn't you? Just
Be a random survey, wouldn't it?
Have to,
Yeah.
Mr Mayor, the introduction of swipe cards doesn't define the purpose of being free for entry. issuing the actual swipe card. There's a cost involved in actually in installing that infrastructure. There's going to be a substantial cost involved at those two facilities. I don't see the logic if we are having free entry that you actually require a swipe card.
Because that's after hours.
Yeah, and that was the other thing in relation to Councillor Smith's request for the extended hours. Obviously, there's other issues in relation to they've got the former Tumut Shire pools have got video surveillance and other forms of surveillance over the pools to meet the liability requirements. So there would be a substantial cost to the Tumbarumba and Cancoban pool for the installation of that equipment if council wanted to go down that path.
Well, given that, maybe Councillor Ham might withdraw that and we get a report on the cost of that for the next meeting, and then we decide there, so we're not rushing into something that we haven't considered prior and we don't really know the cost.
That would be appreciated. Thank you.
Okay.
And I have to also say that I support the idea, the concept, but I'm concerned about the impact of the cost, that maybe we could spend that money on other things.
Well, you'll have to consider that when you vote.
But no, I'm not happy with that. So I've just agreed to take the swipe cards away. So that means that Tumbarumba and Cancoban don't get the access of the pools in the northern area of being able to swim, do laps before and after the time. It's not very equitable across the council.
We're talking about existing infrastructure and putting new infrastructure in.
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
that's the difference.
I know. Well, that's where I come back in. I just think this whole thing needs. There are going to be ramifications, and we should, look into it a bit further before we pass this motion.
Well, in that case, you might be voting against it.
Oh, I am.
You've just moved part of it.
Oh, I see. Yeah, okay.
So yeah, I'm happy with it.
You're happy with that?
As
Any
a
further-
seconder, I'm happy with it.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Well, I'd like to have a full report on the fees and charges.
Well, this is what we're voting on now.
Okay, that's fine, sorry.
Yeah, you can move an amendment if you want to include that.
Okay. Right.
So you're moving an amendment?
Yes.
Which is?
That we have a full report on all the fees and charges and full access to all the financial implications of the decision that we're taking.
That's not an amendment, that's a different motion.
Sorry.
It's a different motion altogether.
Yeah.
You don't do that.
Yeah.
You want to include it.
Yeah.
Well, we've been given the fees.
Well, I'd caution you on that because a couple of things here. There's some measures that we're talking about now that may require additional equipment to be installed to provide protection. And depending on the usage and the hours of usage, we may be required to employ more staff to operate the pools. And that's something we haven't costed in terms of what I've told you at the moment.
That's not part of that. That's not part of that motion. So there's no extra cost at the present moment.
Well, there will be as a consequence of it, that's all. I was cautioning you, there will be, because primarily, but then there are potential, if we don't need to have a game, we can have people on the pool. That's
Potential offsets in the kiosk.
Yeah,
You know.
and there's all that, but that's, so,
I think.
we'll just leave it there.
Yeah, I think we'll just put this motion and see where we go from there. So the motion's there. I'll call it a division, so if you can just put your hands up. So all in favour? 4. Motion's passed. Thank you. Okay. Moving on. Recommendation 7.2, the council prepares a report outlining design options, cost, funding sources and or potential community partnerships to upgrade existing infrastructure at the Adelong Pool to improve the capability and serviceability to provide year-round swimming. Someone, Councillor Riley, moving that?
Yep,
A seconder?
Councillor
Councillor Benjamin? Councillor Wright?
Yeah, look, essentially, the rationale behind this is that the Adelong pool was always planned at some point to be heated. It was purpose-built for it to be heated. Council made a decision in 2012 not to heat it for various reasons, but essentially we do not have a heated pool in the whole Shire. I think we'd probably be one of the few shires in New South Wales that probably doesn't have a heated pool somewhere within its environment. It's been something that has been spoken about for many years, and we were lucky in 2012 to be able to build a multi-million-dollar facility at Adelong that came about primarily due to a flood and some very good community support in Adelong and surrounds to build a world-class facility. And I'd like to propose that we take the next step to heat it, and we explore the options to do that, whether we seek those options through a tender process to provide it, to see what it will cost, or we make those decisions in-house and then go to tender. But I don't particularly, just taking into account the Director's comments, I'm not in favour of outsourcing that to a consultant. I think we either go to tender or we design it ourselves. There's not a lot of options there really. It's just a case of basically putting a roof on the top and then deciding how we heat it. The provisions are there for the heating via gas, but there is a number of options that may or may not be viable. Geothermal, there's the gas, there's the solar, and there's also the heat exchange pumps, or whether we just put solar panels and offset the costs from the input. I understand Cootamundra is running a very successful heated indoor pool. Perhaps we seek some input from our fellow council as to how they're doing it and how best to do it. But my thoughts are initially that, as we discussed in 2012, that we essentially put a roof on it but have a concertina door system either side, so that in summer it doesn't remain an indoor pool, it remains an outdoor pool with a roof. And there is even options for roofs to be electronically wound back if that's a concern. And then in the winter months, then we pull the concertina doors closed and it becomes an indoor facility.
Thanks, Councillor Wright. Speaking against the motion?
Can I have a question, please?
Sure.
Just a question for clarification, please, Mayor. The Director of Assets has said that council officers have facilitated the preparation. That means it's underway. Is that what's happening? It's already action?
Mr. Christensen?
Mr Mayor, we've received one report that was undertaken during the consideration process by the then administrator for the heating of the Tumut pool, which did consider the feasibility economically of having such a heated structure at the Adelong pool. That report didn't favour that heating, and it directed the priority towards the Tumut pool. My comments placed in here are about looking at all 5 pools in the Shire and seeing how we can lift the level of service on all those pools, not just looking at heating them, but how we can extend the seasons of all pools in a priority manner.
Can you forward that report on to all councillors?
I've run up a copy for everyone.
That's it.
Thank you. Very NC. Well done. Okay. So I've got motion.
Can I say in support, I'd like to see the tenders. I'd like to see what the costs are, and so that just becomes part of this report as well.
Yes, I don't think this motion's going to cost
It's
nearly
not
as much
gonna
as the previous one. We finished voting?
Can't get them all done.
So do we need to, in that case, do we need to add further there that we seek a tender to provide?
Your motion?
Yeah, well, I put that.
Can I just request clarification of the motion? You're asking a report to outline the
You
design.
may not need to go to tender for a report.
No, you don't need to go to tender for a report. You're only asking for a report in that.
And then we decide whether we go to tender.
So
You happy with that?
it's staying as it is, isn't it? You're only asking for a report. Yes? That's all you've got there?
Yeah, well, my thinking on it was that if we do go to a tender process to provide those services, then we will then get a market appreciation of what it would cost to build. We don't have to accept them, but if we...
But you're only asking for a report.
So do you want added to that with the option of going to tender?
Yeah.
You can't go to tender unless you have a commitment to go ahead with it.
That's right.
Yeah,
So
there'll be
you.
the funding set aside, so
So what we are asking here for
I
is a
think we just go
report.
with the report.
you need the report to make the
That's
assessment about the value of the tender. and
Yes.
deal with it.
Yes. So we're only voting
you.
on the fact that we're asking for a report.
So I've got the motion, right?
And can that be internal?
It could be internal or external depending on what resources we have available to do it. You know, we don't always have the expertise to actually cover something with specialist information like this, so we will seek additional support from other consultants to actually add to that report. Maybe in terms of preparing a reporting house, you can do that. But we need in a decision like this, you need to have the best information available. Right? And that doesn't necessarily mean that we have it in-house.
So we've got the motion there. No further comment? Put the motion, all in favour? Carried. Thanks, Councillor Lana. 7.3 we've moved to confidential. 7.4. The council establishes a major industry committee.
Yes, Mr Mayor, this is the motion I put up. The reason I put it up is that we don't have any formal reporting to us about what's going on in our shire. We're a very big shire with some major industries. And most of the information I get personally is from down the street. Have you heard so-and-so got a tender to put a massive
Councillor
road?
Pritchard, do you want to move it and then we'll...
Yeah, I'll move it, yeah, sure.
Do a second it? Councillor Ham, carry on.
Yeah, we've got these major industries in our area. And we don't want to interfere with them, but it's our responsibility to our community that we're fully informed of what they're up to. I mean, Snowy Hydro 2.0 is going ahead, or the feasibility study is, and the likelihood is that it'll go ahead after that. But we don't really know what's going on. And sure, we went to a dinner up at Tumut the other day and other evening, and we were told a fair bit about it, but we don't have any formal way of asking them direct questions. And similarly with Visi, we hear rumours that Visi may be looking at putting these are only pure rumours, and whether there's any fact to them, I don't know. But we need to know that Visi may be wanting to do a recycling to energy facility out the middle there, which would which I've heard could bring down many truckloads of material from Sydney for processing here to make energy. In other words, burning in our valley. Whether there's any basis to this, I don't know. Visi certainly has a community consultative committee, but they run it, and they call the tune, and they don't answer any direct questions. We have the big, massive softwood industry here, and they again have a committee to which council has a representative, which is the softwood working group, which has got up to a certain point. But again, we don't have any regular reporting to this body, which is to this community, and so I felt that we need to address that deficiency by forming a major industry committee. Yeah, that's what I've got to say.
So do you envisage this would just be, say, an annual meeting
Well,
or
I'd say once every 3 months.
once every 3 months?
And it could write official letters off to Busy or to Snowy Hydro or to whatever, or Claire, or the new models thing you put in fast training.
Could be extensive and mailing list.
Anyone else like to speak on the motion?
Would this, Jeff, are you looking at this includes horticulture as well, like the vignerons and the
Well,
blueberries?
they're minor industries, really. Well, so they're the flower industry, but
Oh, that, come on.
but the ones that are going to
Okay.
have a major impact on our community. I don't know. I'll be guided by what the council
Is
says.
it-
Maybe need to talk to the Manuscriptional Centre as well, because they're a major employer in that.
Yeah, how much is, yeah, okay. And I'm looking at Hyan as well. So the Softwoods Working Group,
Yes,
That-
Heinz a member of that.
okay, so that would
Yeah,
cover
shall
a
we go
lot
to
of
No, I
it.
think
Yes.
so.
Yeah,
Excuse
okay.
me, can I move that we go to committee, please?
You only got to move and second?
I've got to move it.
No, for the motion, please.
Oh, no. Yeah.
You were going to move in
I'll
second to the
it.
motion on the, yeah, we do have that.
So move to committee, seconded. Keep going.
Sorry, Jeff, I've got no problem with it, except I'm just wondering what is, you know.
At the present moment, all I'm trying to say really is at the present moment we don't get any formal input. Well, we don't necessarily ask these companies any questions which could about what their intentions are. And I'm sure a lot of this is, most of this is commercial in confidence, but I personally want to know what's going to happen in these waste to energy proposals that are in the wind.
And do you think they'll tell you?
We've got more chance of them.
In a what would basically be a public meeting?
I don't think they would. But,
No, I just so I'm just, bringing the devil's
yeah,
advocate here. What,
sure,
why?
but we would be in a position to ask the politicians to give us an answer.
Yeah. I think we might be looking at establishing something that, with all good intentions, that won't really work.
So I'm wondering if, I understand where you're coming from, and I can see that to me you're talking about lobbying to understand what these major players of the world, not just of our community, but of the world have in reference to our community, and I think that's a really important thing to know, but I'm not sure we get it out of our major industry committee that you're speaking of. And I wonder if we would have lobbying power stronger if we as councillors gave greater support to our Chamber of Commerces and gave them an opportunity. I know the Chamber of Commerces perhaps are of the past, but issues relating to specific industries, surely, we as a council group could deal with. I'm not sure it needs a viable industry.
The Chamber of Commerce at all, really.
Yeah, I think I agree with Councillor Pritchard. I think this is the step above that.
Yeah.
You may remember, Councillor Pritchard, the previous Tumut Council, we had a motion that we have a community forum on development, major development, and it never went anywhere. So maybe we might be better off hosting a forum or a workshop or something, and then from that seeing where the main players want to go and building something from that, rather than just establish a committee that maybe might work. Acting interim general manager, you wanted to say something?
If I may.
Absolutely.
Just one other example is about the forestry industry, for example. We're always looking at expanding.
Yes.
And one thing I've wanted to bring up for some time but haven't done so is that should we have a buffer zone around our towns for forestry, so that we don't have a disaster that happened in 2003 in Canberra when a lot of Canberra nearly got burnt out.
Yeah.
From a fire protection point of view and from an aesthetic point of view, should we be looking at having a buffer zone around the towns?
Can I just answer that one first? That you're actually about to review your LEP, and that's the things you actually discussed as part of that revision of the LEP, and that's the key thing. I would also caution you on the committee ideas that we have no authority to ask these people to come to the table, and often we're talking about information, as the mayor has already said, quite commercial in confidence. And even if we could do it in a confidential way, often we can't release it. Anyway, so your idea of talking to about, your concern, I think you've got concerns about waste to energy, but actually adding to the pollution in the environment. The appropriate regulatory control, and the people who control that very rigorously is the EPA. In their licensing of those facilities, and actually my first-hand experience was actually dealing with this issue. And you get more information out of them with regard to what's happening, as well as what the standards would be in requirements to actually for someone to meet. So you probably get the information not necessarily from the people actually proposing it, but actually us then as an organisation looking at what the issues are and actually talking to the appropriate regulatory authorities about the standards that would be applied.
And that's the sort of thing that this committee could ask.
Well, you can just ask it now. We can go.
I sent you an email. I sent you an email a few weeks ago asking for a report on.
Yeah, we are. We're trying to get the information together for it.
Yeah.
When you're dealing with state government agencies, it takes time to get information back. You won't just get it back the next day. It could take a month or so.
I didn't have my email acknowledged.
I spoke to you on the way up to the thing.
Yeah, but I didn't have this speaking to somebody's not.
Anyhow, we'll address that later.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Sorry.
if I could offer an alternative, the former Tumut Shire, they had an informal council session and we invited these industries, the directors, to come along to that meeting and have a presentation confidentially. And we had Snowy Hydro, a number of government agencies and New South Wales Police, and that was a really good forum. It was an informal forum. And these sort of things
Gus Hine used to have those ones with regularly.
Hine and Son used to come in occasionally, so I think that could be a good alternative. It's with the whole
I'd be happy
council.
to withdraw that and
Withdraw that.
ask for a report along those lines.
Okay.
It's fine.
Okay.
Yep.
So withdrawing that and we're
Moving
that
out
way.
of committee.
I move that we ask for a report about some alternative.
Well, we'll move out of committee and then we'll do that.
Move out of committee.
Seconder? Councillor Cross? All in favour? We're out of committee. Councillor Pritchard?
No, I'll withdraw that motion and ask for a report along the lines of what do you suggest?
What Gus said.
How did you work it?
If I could, Mr. Mayor, I don't think it actually needs a report. I think if we have these informal council meetings, I think it's just an operational thing that we invite these stakeholders to a meeting to present and just have an informal discussion. I think it needs a report.
Okay, well, we'll move
That we initiate
Yeah.
some meetings.
Good idea.
I think we identify our key stakeholders and invite them, industry stakeholders, and invite them to come and talk to council.
Thanks. That's great. Moving forward. Tourism Committee. Recommendation there, Council establishes a Tourism Committee and that the Tourism Committee establishes appropriate subcommittees for defined interests, etc. Moving that way.
I'll move that way.
Councillor Benjamin. Right. Councillor Pritchard.
We haven't had a tourism committee for a couple of years. It lapsed. And a couple of months ago I wrote to council about I wanted a copy of what was going on. I had no idea what was going on when we were under administration. So I wrote to the council at that stage and asked for a copy of any minutes of any tourism committee. And I had a phone call from one of the council officers to say that there had been meetings, but there had been no formal minutes. It's one of our major economic pillars, tourism, and
Has written.
possibly to pursue it and
Postpone this because I think you're going to create precedents. So the reports are connected, or the notice of motion and the report are connected, so they should be looked at concurrently.
So look at concurrently.
Yeah.
what page is that?
Page 76 of the agenda.
Can I just
So
ask?
can we just put that in advance?
We can bring it forward.
Bring this forward even though we've got the motion there?
why you can
You use that.
leave it on the table.
Yeah, we'll leave that motion, I think.
And you can bring this one forward and discuss it before you reconsider the other motion.
Okay. Thank
I'll
you very
second
much.
it.
Thank you both.
And on so doing, if I could go to the list of tourisms that are mentioned in the list for the motion, we're leaving out Battler as Development League, and Battler Development League is the prime behind the cider fest, and both those groups have enormous support from Destination New South Wales, so they're a really high profile part of our community and tourism and should be mentioned in the list, so I'll just bring that to our point. Now we're looking at what page? 74?
76.
76. And of course, to that end, there's probably others you can add, but, you know,
Yeah, I just think that
the Adelong Antique Fest.
exactly.
There'd be heaps of them.
Yeah, but they don't have the support from.
Well, there will be tourism groups that are actually meeting without necessarily meeting
Yes.
the council.
That's right.
76.
So the recommendation is that council defers the formation of the Tourism Advisory Committee until the Destination Management Plan is issued in January 2018. This plan will specifically address whether a Tourism Advisory Committee is required and structure and purpose of this committee.
Probably given it's required, but it isn't.
I'm just wondering whether the Destination Management Plan could be organised with the input of a Tourism Advisory Committee
What's the
rather
meeting on Wednesday?
than
On Monday?
rather than the opposite.
The meeting on Monday is a destination meeting.
On the 9th.
On the
No,
ninth,
it's
isn't
on-
it?
yeah, the 9th. Yeah.
It's actually got convened with the public and tourism groups in mind, and actually preparing the destination.
Right.
So you're saying
So
establish
they're
the
doing
committee
that,
now?
Yeah.
If I could, Mr. Mayor, I'd probably urge council to hold back until after that initial councillor workshop on the 9th to
Yep.
talk to the consultants, and that's the whole council. Yeah, and then, so it could be postponed a month if you wanted it to go up to the November meeting after you'd spoken to the consultants. I think it would be
Postpone this
The motion.
motion for a month.
We're happy to do that.
Yep.
So we move and second that. Postpone that for a month.
Well, you can actually just move it to be deferred to the November meeting.
I'll move that one.
Yep.
Second to defer.
Thank you. All in favour? Deferred.
Then you go back to the original.
We'll go back to the original motion. Establishing a tourism committee. Re-establishing and invigorating.
Defer it till November.
Defer this one as well. Councillor Pritchard, you happy to defer this until we... Okay, thank you. Councillor, who was the second on that?
Me, sorry, my apology.
So the motion is that we defer this one as well. Councillor Pritchard, Councillor Risson. Any further discussion? All in favour? Carried. Nearly finished. Here are the numbers.
There you go.
Page 34.
Yeah.
Mayor, can I just ask a question, please? Just totally, our tablets aren't recording the same page as the papers. We're on 38 on the tablets and it's 34.
Because it's in the footer.
Yeah.
And you got to look at the footer in the tablet.
Yeah, but it did before. It actually paged reference exactly.
It's page 34.
Yeah,
on the tablet.
yeah,
so they're
it's page
actually-
34, but it's
It's
actually
C,
based
no,
on
you have the page reference.
Okay, recommendation there. Statement of financials.
Second.
Councillor Lara, Councillor Isserman.
Could I just circulate for you, it's just an updated report on the statement of investments.
Yes.
I'll just get you to do my pass those around. There is nothing remarkable to note in the investments or in the reserves. we've just got some updated information for you.
And I noticed that the investments are still flagged from their provenance, Tumut, Tumbarumba. Yeah.
Is that going to remain?
And I guess that's the issue in regard to our two financial systems at the moment, which we are working on merging together, but at this point in time, that's the reason behind that.
That's the reason behind that, okay.
So all those significantly low MP investments that stand alone will come back together at some stage in the future.
Yes.
Thank you. Any questions, any comments there on that?
Move the report.
We've got the recommendation, it's been moved already.
Sorry?
Can you second it?
No idea. Good on me.
Well thought. All in favour? Carried. Let's move on. Review of section 3. Oh, this will be nice and easy. Yeah,
You had the option, I gave it to you.
Review of section 355 committees. The recommendation is that the proposed amendments to be made to the council's register containing section 355.
The alcohol-free zone extended the full length of Pioneer Street down past the school and the hospital, rather than being at the corner. I thought that was a motion we put through when we were looking at these 3 years ago. And I'd also make the point that the actual map shows that the alcohol-free zone starts across the road from the hotel, rather than from in front of the hotel, because the hotel is on Pioneer Street.
What page are we?
Page 70 on the hard copy.
If I could, Mr Mayor, I'd agree with Councillor Easterman that needs to include the at the front of the Ballet Hotel there as part of the alcohol-free zone. It should be included, and Pioneer Street, if it was included in the last, must be a clerical error in the map. Should also
That's fine.
be included.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. And we don't write to peak bodies and ask them, we just do this.
The consultations have already been, all the licensed premises within inside the zone or adjacent to the zone have been notified. They've all been given a copy of the proposal, and council can amend it at this point in time. It still gets advertised for another 28 days from this point, but
It'll be advertised for 28 days. Someone to move that? No. Councillor Smith, Councillor Benjamin. Any discussion? Any further questions? All in favour? Carried. Thank you. Moving on. Minutes of the Youth Council meeting.
Seconded. Page 79.
Okay. Someone move those? We've done that? Yep. And any comments on that?
Just that there is a recommendation within that council contribute funding and assistance towards redesigning and building an improved and more functional use space at the Tumut Skate Park. Just wondering whether we could perhaps leave that in the hands of the youth initially, and maybe run a competition with a prize for the best design. Or
Yeah, I think we already discussed that. We looked at other options for getting grants as well. We looked at Blakely Miller, for example, and so encouraging those young people to take charge of the process of looking for grants and getting a grant.
And owning it.
And owning, yeah, exactly, owning it, yes. So,
If I could, Mr Mayor, I had a discussion with the youth officer, and I suppose that recommendation was put up that the council would generally endorse that proposal, and then they would go away and look at what the possible funding bodies would be. But I suppose the resolution on the books would indicate that council would generally endorse what they were proposing to do, as opposed to actually seeking funding or anything.
that was my understanding.
Yeah. I think we need to be saying that we'll encourage them to seek funding rather than contribute.
That was my understanding in minutes when we were there.
That's right.
Just a point of clarification, they're saying more functional youth space. Does that mean enlarging the skate park or having youth space around the skate park?
Enlarging the skate
It doesn't
park.
say it there.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the more functional use space are things like lighting and like solar lighting and an extension to the skate park as well. But just to enhance the facility they've got down there, some street infrastructure. You can buy park benches that have got the rails built into them, like concrete structures that they can use their skateboards and things on. It's just adding other infrastructure down there as well, including lighting, possible lighting.
But you don't have the word to expand the skateboard park. It's not being said.
Because we can determine how we contribute with this.
Redesigning and improving.
It says contribute funding.
But we can contribute through helping grants in terms of we do.
Excuse me,
Right.
Mr. Mayor. Next to the skate park is the new, I remember the name, my apologies, children's play area, is that correct? Could I ask Acting General Manager, is that park still being locked every evening and unlocked every morning?
I'm not sure, Mr. Christian.
Blind box.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The blind box is still being locked overnight.
So this proposal is to put lights on the skate park and still lock the Fox.
Oh, I'd say they'd be timed, the lights on the skate park.
They definitely would be. I would assume that would be up to council's discretion, but they would go off at a certain period of time.
I think when we put the skate park up, we negotiated with the residents across the road that they wouldn't be impacted by late night.
You would need approval anyway, wouldn't it? The extension?
It would have to
That would be
come back,
conditional.
yeah.
Rather than us redesign it, is there any chance that we could put $100 up or something to run a competition across the youth to redesign it themselves?
They've got their own funds.
Yeah. I think it's better if they engage somebody to do it for them, because there's some absolutely amazing options out there, so to get somebody to do it properly as well, maybe across the whole Shire. I think you had some ideas too, Adriana.
Yeah.
Actually, that recommendation covers that option if you want to pursue that.
Okay, so we have.
Now it's going to government Olympic sport.
Okay, we move that, put that motion. We've got to move in a second. All in favour? Carried. Okay, let's move on to the minutes of the Sports Committee. Just a clarification here on this. It says that I declared a non-pecuniary interested report as a board member of the Adelong Junior Sports Foundation. I'm not a member of the Adelong Junior Sports Foundation and I've never been a member of the Junior Sports Foundation. I am, however, a board member of the Bendigo Bank, who is a co-funder of this, that grant. Same as I'm a member of council.
So we'll be made with that amendment, will we?
Yes. It needs to be amended. So, if we could, with that amendment, to that, someone could move those. Councillor Benjamin, Councillor Wright. Any clarification, any questions on that? Or put the motion, all in favour? Carried. Late report. Everybody had time to look at that, or on a moment?
Mr. Mayor, if I could. Yeah, look, it's a procedural report that's got to go through, and I do apologise that it's missed the initial business paper, but the amendments are of a minor nature there. They're only really affect just a handful of lots there in the southern end of the Tumut Shire. But happy to take any questions that might arise.
Just one question. Are these changes part of the LEP that was prepared earlier, and it's just a minor adjustment to those LEPs.
Yeah, that's right, Councillor Isselman. The Amendment 3, these were pulled out at the last minute and sort of been put back in. So they've been on the books for a period of time. They were reviewed by the former Tumut Shire under the previous amendment to the LEP.
And that's what this is about.
Thank you, Councillor Ham. Councillor Larder. Any discussion? Put the motion, all in favour? Carried. Thank you. Which brings us to Committee of the Whole.
The water, isn't it?
Do we want, anybody want to make any comment?
Oh, Randy.
Hand the table, can I just do that? Just Councillor Larder? Councillor Isselman, you always got something to say.
You'd say that. I'm really concerned that we take recognition of the Department of Planning and Environment, the new SEPs coming out, State Environment and Planning Policy, where they're taking the 5 documents and putting them in a rule document, and I think it's something as councillors we should be really aware of and pay close attention to. That's going to be a major change to things that have happened within council, and it could be worthwhile that we either have a workshop on that or a look at it in the near future, because that particular environmental planning document is going to lead us in what we have to plan in relation to our own LEPs. And if we haven't got ourselves around what the New South Wales state government wants us to do, then we can't really do anything with our LEPs. So I just asked Mr Mayor to recognise that that's something we might need to have a workshop on, or something like that in the near future, a briefing or something. I'm not quite sure how that will come about. Leave it up to directors and yourself. And I'm also keen to have us have an awareness of the public meeting to be held in Wagga on the 21st, which is local area health, district local area health. We've all got invitations to that, and more than I've already accepted to go, but I think more of us need to go and be part of that, given the issues that are relating to what Councillor Pritchard has often raised about what we need in our area and our local health system. So if we're going to get a handle on that, I think we should be addressing that as well. And this may not be our last meeting with our acting general manager, but it might be. Are you here for our next meeting?
Oh, it depends on whether you get someone within 2 weeks or something.
Oh, well, if you're not, thank you for your contribution.
Councillor Benjamin. Nothing. Councillor Smith? No. Councillor Ryan? Directors,
Just on that, Councillor Isselman, the Tumbarumba multi-purpose centre is just about to start construction. The tender's been awarded to a company out of Canberra, and they're going to set up their site amenities in the coming weeks. So they're not planning on doing a lot before Christmas, but it'll be a two-year project there. So there'll be a lot of community consultation going out in Tumbarumba, but they're starting a new hospital job there. So.
Fabulous. Be good to see.
It's interesting, they gave us time to shift the tree and everything, didn't they?
Well, we've negotiated to put the site amenities on the street just to fill in the rest of the council. There's a Carraway candlelight, there's a massive pine tree located on the site, and we've negotiated to allow public access for that over Christmas. So we have allowed to use an area of adjoining park, a redundant sort of section of the park. The other thing which might be worth mentioning is the container deposit scheme. We're negotiating, and the contract's been awarded to a company that what they're offering is quite substandard for the community. So we're negotiating with them at the moment, but they're possibly talking about reverse vending machines. It's progressing, but at this point in time,
Is that the only company that showed interest in doing that?
it was the company that the state government appointed to
Has
service this
tendered
area.
right across there?
Yeah, tendered.
So they're the sole provider, are they, of that service? No one else can do it?
Unless you take the product to a larger centre, but we're looking at different options, but I thought I'd just flag it.
What's the date for that introduction?
The 1st of December.
It's going to happen.
It wasn't well thought through.
No, but just, I will brief councillors at the next, the information session in relation to where it's progressing, like things are coming up daily in relation to it. But that's where it sits at this point in time, and we probably need to get some stuff out in the community as to what the implications are. But it's interesting at this point in time.
I'd just like to offer a vote of thanks to the council staff for the well-run ultra marathon that was on the Human Hobble, and it was just amazing. 185 participants. Each one of those had at least one or two support people. The Elms did 120 meals that night. Town was booked out. It was just brilliant. And over again, they just kept saying how good Snowy Valley's council was. So there you go.
Good result.
Yeah.
Councillor Pritchard?
I would just I'd like to the business papers in paper form rather than relying on the tablet, because it's difficult to get the whole tables and things on the tablet. The other thing is when we get messages, there should be some way that we can indicate that we've received the message, and if that indication isn't received by the council staff, then they should phone us up. Because I'm often on the tractor and I don't hear a thing, and this messages.
Can we request a receipt or something like one of those? Or
Yeah, because I know I often try to ring Councillor Pritchard and I don't get through, so I kind of